Welcome, everybody. It is the 5th of September, 2023, and we're here today to talk about chip number 20. This is going to be a hinting chip, and Brandon is with us. He wrote the chip, and I am Dan Perry, the editor of the chip, and I work for Chia Network Inc. as a technical writer. Brandon, do you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah, sure. I'm Brandon Hextrom. I work for Chia on the developer relations team and do a little bit of engineering work on the side.
Great. Well, let's get started. I'm going to bring up the chip itself on the screen here. Letting more people in now. So do you want to start out, Brandon, by explaining what the issue is? Why would we need wallet hinting or coin hinting to begin with?
Yeah. So for things like NFTs and DIDs and coins like that, where the coins have built-in state associated with them, it is not possible to automatically know which puzzle hashes you need to look for coins in your wallet. You could try to brute force simple things like cats. You could look up every single possible cat you could have, maybe, but it's just not feasible to do that for things like NFTs where there's 5-6 parameters that you need to check for. It's not possible to brute force that. So you need to know which puzzles you have in your wallet without knowing them up front. So you need to check for all the coins that your wallet can spend, which usually means looking for each address and checking the inner puzzle hash of the coins. And there's nothing on chain that lets you do this because the puzzles are hashed with the outer puzzle, in this case an NFT, and you wouldn't know the inner puzzle hash, you only know the outer one. So you'd have to have some way of looking it up or referencing it from just the inner puzzle hash, and that's what the hint solves.
Okay, so then what exactly is a hint? Can you explain how that works?
Yeah. So when you create a coin, there's usually two parameters, the puzzle hash and the amount. But the third parameter is memos. And this is what this chip defines, is that memos parameter. The first memo must be 32 bytes in length and is used as the hint. So when you create a coin, you can specify the hint in the memos field, and that's what's used on chain to look up coins that are that use that inner puzzle hash.
Okay. And I mean, I know we already use hinting in Chia's reference wallet, but are there other alternatives that could be used instead?
There's a couple things that come to mind. For example, for cats, you can, instead of using hinting, you can wrap your inner puzzle hash with all of the tails that you have access to and look up coins that way directly by puzzle hash. This does not work for cats which you have not had in your wallet previously or don't know about. So if someone just sends you some random cat that they created, you wouldn't know anything about that coin unless they told you what the tail was. And another option is to, instead of storing the hint in the blockchain database, you could store it on some sort of third-party website or centralized database. The downside there being that if that service were to go down, then you wouldn't be able to look up those coins anymore.
So it sounds like this is pretty close to the best way that we've thought of to do this sort of coin discovery on chain, is hinting, have it be fully on chain.
Yeah, but it's not stored on chain per se. It's part of the blockchain database, and it's actually an optional thing for full nodes to store this.
Oh, it is. Okay, I wasn't aware of that.
But all of the nodes currently do. So
okay, and what about other wallets? Can they just implement this chip easily if they want? And do they
yeah,
have to? Sorry. The other question is, do they have to implement it?
they don't have to, but they probably should if they want to be compatible with other wallets that do. If you send a coin that isn't hinted to a wallet that expects a hint, it won't be able to find the coin. They can implement it by simply adding the memos field with the hint as the first parameter to any created conditions or coins in the output of their spend.
And from what I gathered, we fully have already implemented this in as of like, what was it, 182?
Yeah, prior to 182, change from cat spends was not hinted, but everything else was. And after 182, every single cat coin that's created in the wallet should be hinted.
Okay. So this is somewhat of a backwards looking chip to begin with, but
Yeah,
so go ahead.
The implementation predates the chip process, so we weren't able to make a chip.
Oh, right. Before chips even do this. So this has been out for a long time then, before chips even existed.
Yep.
So then is the reason to make it a chip just to kind of standardize the process so other wallets can take advantage of it?
Yep. I think there was a bit of confusion in the community on what to use for hinting or whether to use it at all. Maybe some people didn't even know about it. So it's good to standardize on what hinting is, how you can use it, and provide this as a resource for those who do want to use it.
Great. And we've already got it in review fast track. So the idea here would be get some reviews in and make sure most people tend to agree with it and we have general consensus, and then we can put it into last call and then finalize it. And then this will be like Brandon said, just a guideline for other wallets and ecosystem developers to use. So I think that covers everything that I wanted to know about it. So it's pretty basic, straightforward chip. Does anyone in this room have any questions about it? Just go ahead and start talking.
So along with hinting coins is also standardization around the ability to find coins that are hinted like that. Is whatever updates to the RPC calls outside the scope of this chip, and that would just be something that the reference wallet does, or is it intended to upgrade the RPC call at the same time?
Yeah, I think the RPCs are a bit out of the scope because if someone were to make their own full node, they could implement it in a different way than we do. So this is more of like a standard on how hinting itself works rather than how we implement it in our own wallet or full node.
I think that's a good point that Grant makes, though, Brandon, that maybe add a little note that this doesn't cover RPCs into the chip.
Yep. And then as far as coins that are created in this fashion with a hinted inner puzzle, so this means that if you're going to have a non-hint memo, that it should be at the non-zero index. Is that the rough guidance around this? Is that the first hint is always the inner puzzle? And what if there isn't an inner puzzle? Does that mean you should always start at index 1 for any non-hinted coin? Like you wouldn't hint a standard XCH transaction, right? So like, is there a guidance to what wallet should do for a coin that doesn't need hinting?
Not entirely sure whether the first hint or first memo is considered part of the memo list.
I think it was stated in the chip that if the first entry is a 32-byte value, then it is to be considered as a hint. Otherwise, if it is not, so if it's anything but 32 what was it, byte, then it's not a hint.
Can we scroll to that? Just
oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, that is how I've understood it to work in the past too.
It would be good to clarify to make sure.
If the memo's parameter is present and the first value is exactly 32 bytes in length, it is used as the hint and the rest of the list are memos. Otherwise, the values in the entire list are memos.
But that 32 bytes in length, it doesn't, like, that doesn't say that it has to actually be like a correct coin. Like it could just be all zeros and that would still be considered a hint, or
Right, because you don't know whether it's a valid puzzle until it's been spent. So it's not possible to check that.
But okay, so the wallet would just guess that it's meant to be used as a hint.
Yeah.
This is another good thing to just clarify in the chip. It's a good question.
Yep.
And so I suppose if you want to just leave any memo, you could just put anything in that's not 32 bytes, and wallets would just ignore it. It would just be a memo.
Yeah, sometimes these kind of like length based problems, they will have some indicators, like first 2 bytes can be specified bytes, and then the two will be a hint. So if it is 34, they can take the first two, and if it matches with that. But still, if there is anything with 34, then it can be also considered different. But sometimes these problems, they will have some indicator before that to note that, okay, these upcoming streams of the length of bytes is similar to this particular one.
I think the important point for a wallet is that it has to kind of check whether the memo that the user adds or the wallet adds for some other reasons happens to be 32 bytes, because then it wouldn't be seen as a memo.
Yeah. So like, for example, if there is any prefix on it, like 2 bytes, and which is very specific bytes, but still it can be like a 34 bytes of any random string, and wallet may try to say that, okay, this might be a hint. But here we'll have one more 2 bytes to fix that, to say that, okay, if it is this, then it is a hint.
So one question that comes to my mind, Brandon, or I mean, we might have to consult with developers in CNI. Are there more plans in the future to use a memo as something else other than a hint and other than a memo? Because I think Savari makes a good point. If 32 bytes is always considered a hint, then we're not able to use 32 bytes to mean anything else in the future. We're sort of locking in just hint. So what if we had some indicator, like you said, to say 32 bytes and also the first byte is XYZ, then it's a hint.
Yeah, so that 2 bytes can be rotated for anyone. To this specific value, it will be a hint. Maybe in future we can extend this a little bit for something else, right?
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. We could potentially be painting ourselves into a corner. I think is the point if we automatically consider all 32 byte memos to be a hint, or first memo to be a hint.
Yeah.
Okay, that's another great question. So we should think about that a little bit more, and then we'll get back to you guys.
So that gives two things. Like, one is like, instead of always assuming a length, we have some specific standard that, okay, these 2 bytes denotes it, so I can have a little more confidence over what it can go with. So it's more like defined definition of what's the value. And then the second one is like extensibility. In future, we can extend this to anything else. Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure, like, if the hint might also be considered a memo, and if it is, that wouldn't really be an issue. Otherwise, maybe using null as the hint would be a good solution in that case. You can say explicitly that the memo is null, and then provide the 32 bytes you want as the memo itself.
Oh, okay.
Good to check on that one.
Yeah, and by the way, anytime we make any updates to the chip, we'll put a comment in the PR and just notify people in Discord as well, so you can look at it again. Any other questions?
Yeah, what happens if somebody spams that with wrong values? So maybe somebody finds, let's say, somebody to attack and sends this. So the wallet has to handle things that are hinted to be mine, but then are in fact not mine, and so it spends a lot of work to figure that out.
Yeah, I think that's mentioned in the security section. When you receive a hinted coin, you do have to check that the inner puzzle hash indeed matches the hint that was provided. And if it doesn't, you just discard the coin as not being yours. Because yeah, there's nothing on chain that validates that the inner puzzle hash matches the hint.
Yeah, so you have to check it out all. But yeah, it's probably as bad as one mojo spam.
So the you here in this case, is that you the user, or is it the wallet will somehow check it?
No, the wallet has to check it.
Well, yeah, I should clarify that.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is a hint, right? So it's not a something. It's just a hint, so we cannot go by the hint. We have to validate, right? And that's your point.
Okay.
So hi,
Further
can you hear
questions?
me? Yeah,
Oh.
can you hear me well?
I can hear you. Yep. Go ahead.
Okay, so yeah, so the question is, can we somehow DDoS like some wallet by sending like wrong memos, like wrong hint? Like, could we dust some wallet? So the wallet has to handle like having a lot of wrong hints potentially.
I think the memo is part of the puzzle reveal and solution for the spend. So if you included a massive hint, it would count towards the 12,000 cost per byte restriction. So it would be very expensive to include a large hint on the coin.
Oh yeah, no. What I
Also,
meant is like,
if you attack somebody by providing wrong hints, it's actually the same work for the wallet as if you would use the correct inner puzzle hash. In any case, it has to look into the NFT, into the inner puzzle hash to figure out if that is mine. And it has to do that work either if you provide a wrong one or a right one. So
True.
yeah, shouldn't be more effective attack than just spamming one mojo things.
I'm lasering in on this cost thing. Is this something? What's that?
Yeah. Go ahead, Grant. I muted him.
Oh, I'm lasering in on this cost part, actually. This isn't something that I really thought that hard about it. Is this something that actually needs to be considered? Is that if the hint is included, that it actually is included in the CLVM cost? Or are we just going to wave our hand over the top of this one?
There is 32 bytes worth of cost added by using hints. So that's why it's optional or not required for standard transactions, so that you don't have to add that cost every spend. But for things like NFTs, it does add an additional cost by doing this.
And it's what is it? 12,000 per byte?
Yep. So it'd be 12,000 times 32, whatever that is.
Yeah, so like a few hundred thousand.
Yeah.
So,
isn't the create coin something like 1.5 million or so?
yeah, it's 1 point something million, like
Yeah.
1.4, 1.8. So
it's definitely a non-zero increase in the cost, but it's compared to the overall spend, it's probably not too much.
right. Yeah, it's not non-negligible though.
It might be good to specify exactly how much cost is added to a spend by using hints.
I agree. Yeah, that should go in there. It doesn't have, I mean, is there a reason we chose 32 bytes and not something smaller?
It's the inner puzzle hash.
Oh, it's the
Yeah, it's
hash.
the-
Oh,
yeah,
so
it's the size of a puzzle hash.
so it has to be that. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, you could work with prefixes and then it still would be a bit better. Yeah, but I think it's not worth. So you could use 8
Yeah.
bytes and have to do 4 times the lookups, but it might actually be more. So it's probably not worth it, but it might be an interesting comparison.
Would a database lookup be slower if you have to check the start of everything instead of the exact value?
Yeah, true. You need a special index or anything.
I'm not sure if that would be slower or not.
Yeah, you need an
I'm not
index
sure you
that-
have that option in SQL, right? So unless like there were more full nodes that support a different database types. I'm not sure you get that type of granularity with SQLite.
Yeah, well, so on that, like you don't need to like okay, have a prefix lookup and then match, right? So if you are looking for like a specific cat, right? Then you know the hash and you prefix it and you look for that entry, right? So that's
Okay, were there further questions? So it sounds like no for now. Yeah, you guys asked some really good questions in this, and we'll definitely get all of those answered. I'll review this video and make sure all these questions get addressed in the chip itself. And from here, we'll give it some time for people to look over again and just make sure that we have, again, just general consensus on it, and then we'll move toward finalizing it. And the timeline on that could be, the last call phase is usually 2 weeks, and then we should give it at least a couple of weeks till we get to that phase. So at least a month from now before it's finished, maybe a little longer, depending on what other questions and issues come up. So thanks, Brandon. Thanks for presenting this, and thanks everybody for joining. And we will catch you later.
Thank you.
See ya.
Thank you. See you
Thank
next
you.
time.